What's up, guys? This is Jay and Scott with Revolution Radio. It's been a little while, Scott, and that's partially why, like, when we just got on, I was like, let's just do it. I want to get in here as quick as possible. Um, Not incredibly prepared. I have a few things I want to talk about. I definitely want to talk about, like, the cancel culture situations that we have going on right now. I also want to talk about, my segment of why I dislike the Democrats, or my issue with the Democrats, however you want to phrase it. But
I don't
outside of,
even know if there still are Republicans, so it doesn't matter.
hey, Tom Cotton's still around somewhere. Um, but yeah, no, there's not incredibly prepared, but I just wanted to get in and do this because we've had 2 weeks of radio silence. But I'll tell you, uh, there's so much to like catch up on that I just don't feel like we should even really mess with a lot of it because it's just too much backtracking. You know what I'm saying?
It's fine with me. It's all a blur.
I'll say this though, like, and it's totally me. It's not you at all. Um, we have a lot of things that keep coming up. One other thing, let me just this that I never thought having a second kid would make such an impact on things. But there's so many times like, oh, I just do the show. Let's just, whatever. And then the baby. If anyone doesn't know, I have a 9-month old, and that thing it'll ruin a, a free evening. Because even if I don't have to directly watch her, she'll be in the room crying so loud you can hear it, and nobody wants to listen to a podcast with there's a baby screaming in the background. Um, Not to mention, just there's times when it's like, oh, she's having a rough night, so if I'm too loud or my voice carries too much, it might wake her up. Uh, you know, Aside from that,
And
uh,
then there's the ethics of too much codeine and the rest of the things, so you got to be careful.
yeah, I can only take so much lean, you know. Aside from that, I am coming out of tax season. As some people know, I am a business owner. You know what sucks, by the way? So, for taxes, I've printed off about 2 reams full of paper. Like, I'm not kidding. The thing that I bring up is just this, like, two filled, like, hard, like, folders that I bring to my tax woman. And I turned that in last Monday, right? And I haven't heard a single thing. So I was like, oh, okay, I think I'm done. But by the way, again, that was why, like, 2 weeks ago I didn't really do. I was busy with taxes. Last week, I'm done, but I'm kind of making myself available. But thought I was done by now. And I even thought on my way home today, I was like, I guess I should probably call her and find out what's going on or like where my paperwork is. She called me 30 minutes ago and was like, hey, I need this, this, and that from you. I just started working on your taxes. Like, are you fucking kidding me?
You thought you were her only customer.
Well, I mean, 2 weeks. Like, come on. And I just assumed, like, I don't know. One thing I will talk about, and the other thing I won't. But two things that have been heavily weighing on my mind, namely, just like from the get of 2021. And one of those things is taxes, because they're awful for me. I've explained it to you before. I mean, I pay so much goddamn money in taxes, and so like until they get done, until everything gets in there, like I think about it, there's nothing I can do about it, but it just makes things worse. Like so, there's that. Oh, by the way, catch everyone up too. I got my first microchip dosing 2 Fridays ago. Um, so yeah, last week the change started. I noticed I was like really more into like glitter and a lip balm. I've been hanging out on Grinder a
And I,
lot, you
I
know.
didn't I didn't want to tell you, but I've been able actually to track you on my new Gator machine.
Right.
And I didn't know, but that microchip that's actually in that Bill Gates put in it, it works pretty well, buddy. I'm telling you.
I mean, look, I'm down for the D. You know what I'm saying? Like,
It'll
no,
flip you that fast.
it's pretty. It's fine. Like, I'm kind of excited for Easter. I get my second shot here soon, and I should be good for Easter. And I
But
never
those
thought.
pastels are warming up on you now too.
Exactly, exactly. They're gonna look great. I got my little man bag ready. And, uh, no, but I will be good. And again, as a halfway agoraphobic and someone who just hates people, I'm surprised that I'm a little excited about actually celebrating Easter with like my family and junk. And I, by the way, have now taken a zero fucks approach. Like when it comes to COVID, like once I'm vaccinated, I don't care. I'm not like if I see people who are like, I'm not getting a vaccine, blah blah blah, I'll cough all over them. I'm gonna be the typhoid Mary for like ignorant people. Like I'm just spreading this shit. I don't give a
Can you
fuck.
cough some of that vaccine on me? Or
Oh no, I'm giving them the other. Like as long as I can't get it, I don't care. Like I'm selfish about that shit. Like,
well,
but
at least you'll be able to survive the super spreaders. And children, he'll never get sick, but will kill all the old people.
yeah, I mean, look, if the old people haven't gotten it, that's on them at this point. So fuck them. Like that's my take on unless they're compromised. All right, if you have a an immune system issue, fair enough. But if you're like an older person and you just haven't gotten it, yeah, I don't give a shit. Like that's on you, buddy.
Yeah,
Like
well, and that it is funny because most people of any age, including the centurions down, have had all those that at least applied somewhere or walked up to some facility giving out, and they were pushed to the front of the line and given a COVID. Because I do know quite a few elderly people that have got their second and almost third shot. So
yeah, wait, third shot.
yeah, they split up the second shot into 2 doses.
That might be some of it. Like I know Moderna isn't. It's just a two shot.
Yeah,
Um, but it
and
could
then
be
there are the
Pfizer.
different brands do different
Yeah,
things.
they do. Like Johnson and Johnson's the one I would have gotten because it's just one shot. And like for people our age, it's perfect because basically you can still get it. It won't fuck you up. You're not in the hospital. It'll keep you out of the hospital, which is fine. Like that's all I care about anyway.
Yeah, which is the same as a regular flu vaccine. You're not guaranteed not to get the flu later.
Yeah, and by the way, while we're talking about vaccines, I just want to point out like as I was complaining about my daughter, and we are talking about vaccines, like the combination of the two worlds kind of met just a little bit ago for me. I was gifted the responsibility of having to refurbish, or however you want to look at it, to take a junior guitar that has been stored in, I'm assuming, the desert with the strings left on it, and I'm taking care of this thing for my son. I wouldn't do it, by the way, if it was for anyone. Someone asked me, like a friend was like, "Hey, what do you think I should do with this?" I'd say, throw it away. Like, it's bad. It just rusted out as bad as you can believe, and it's not like a good guitar. Like, it's like a first act guitar, which is, I mean, it's Walmart. You know what I'm saying? But so I'm messing with this guitar, right? I'm taking off the strings and I'm cleaning the files and everything, or the frets, I should say. I'm pulling off the last string, and the string pops out, stabs right into my finger. Like it went so far into my finger, like I had to dig it out. And I'm like, oh, son of a bitch, because this string is coated in rust. I'm like, oh no. Like, and then I remembered
You're trying to remember when the last time you had a tetanus shot.
I had to get a Tdap shot, which has the tetanus in it.
Mm-hmm.
I had to get it right before my daughter was born because it also stops you from contracting the whooping cough, and that can kill children or babies, I should say. And so it was like, thank God I got that, because if not, I know this would have like I know this is tetanus right here. I'm looking right at tetanus.
I personally put rust powder into my wounds just to make sure I'm good all the time.
Is it kind of like the snake venom thing? Like you build up a tolerance?
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to find too many poisonous snakes in Kansas without, going under a rock at this time. But soon enough, all my testing facilities will be full of, Western diamondbacks and copperheads ready to milk. I got all the containers with a little latex top ready where I can, kind of stick them on there. Put a little of that in your clamato, some olives, badass.
Well, yeah, you around here too. What is it? The big one. Really, and you should know about the snake because it's more of a fisherman's problem than anyone else.
Well, all the water snakes are harmless.
No, there's
they
that
look
one.
big. They look mean.
There's
a water moccasin.
Yes, that's the guy.
but granted, snakes are more afraid of you, than you are of them. They just kind of go about their business until they see you move and go, oh God, one of those damn monkeys. So they, I've seen a lot of rattlesnakes, and as long as
a lot of goddamn racist snakes out there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but I have a lot of water snakes literally almost run across my feet while I'm fishing, and they don't bother. I swear they're everywhere out at East Lake, one of our little local lakes. That's more like a public campground area where children can pee in. But there are a lot of snakes out there, but they never mess with you. They don't. And water moccasins they're not very common. You're more likely going to find, rattlesnakes and copperheads and other things. And yeah, it's hard to catch them. But
you say snakes are more afraid of us than we are of them, but I don't think you know exactly how terrified of snakes I am. So it's not a fair statement.
End up in your favor, but I'm still just afraid of bears. Once bears move into Kansas, I'm out.
I mean, I'm just saying, if when a snake sees you, they almost have a heart attack, then maybe we're on the same level, but
well, I hope your nightmares are filled with slithery, scaly goodness. You can move to Florida where they have 20-foot Burmese pythons in everyone's backyard. Where's Fluffy? She's such a sweet little chihuahua. No, she's not. She's gone. She's been eaten.
If I could get my mom's chihuahua eaten by a python, I might actually do that trade. I mean, it's close, real close.
I'll tell you, here's a funny news bit about pythons in Florida. If you don't know, by the way, the Burmese pythons have even decimated the population of alligators.
Which is bullshit.
Because well, they have. They've eaten a lot of because normally alligators of a certain size don't have any natural predators, say a 5 or 6 footer. But they do in the Burmese pythons. They can still eat them, and they have been. And they've also decimated the local mammal populations, everything from, all the way up to like bobcats and small deer. They've eaten all those. But that's because the problem is so out of control. It's way past. A couple weeks ago, they decided to ban the imports of these snakes. What's the point? It's already got to a point that it's eaten the entire state. Did you just now decide to ban imports of snakes like that? Oh, that was smart. In Florida.
I mean, there's a reason why if you type up FL, just the 2 letters in Google, the first thing that comes up is Florida man. Like, yeah, no, I mean, look, I think I'm with you in the fact, like, you're just now banning these snakes? Like,
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, what now you might as well let them import something. Maybe something else will have an impact on the Burmese python, but I doubt it. Because 20-foot snakes don't have many natural predators.
Let me ask you, because you know a lot about animals, like, how did they get deer? They're not fast creatures.
The misnomer is no snake can eat an adult human, female or male. Now, children are on the menu, but adult humans are not. And the reason is you could be crushed by one. It's possible if you were handcuffed to a chair or something like that, but they can't go over your shoulders. An adult human's shoulders are too wide for the snake. They can't dislodge their jaws wide enough. And that
Right.
goes for every snake in the world,
Yeah,
not
it's
even
about
a, you
possible.
know, an anaconda or anything. But I mean, what was your question?
Yeah, I don't know why you went off on that. How do they get like a deer?
Oh, well, I mean, it's just as simple. They're an ambush predator. So, I mean, they just sit and wait, and when something gets close enough, little Bambi rolls up. They just latch onto them because, of course, pythons have hundreds of reverse teeth. In fact, their teeth aren't straight down or, they're towards the back of their throat. They latch on, wrap around, then they put so much pressure on you, it causes your blood pressure to shoot up to a level where your circulatory system stops and you have a heart attack in a
Right. Yeah, no, I guess I was just like, I assumed deers being very fast, skittish, um, you know, once they would see or hear something move, they just go run. Like,
Yeah, snake's not making much movement. It's sitting there just watching. I mean, Bambi's got its head down on the ground. Of course, mammals like that, like goats and deer, they have eyes on the sides of their head.
I
They don't
guess,
have binocular vision,
I guess what
so they can only
or
see left and right.
what I was asking, or should have asked, is so when they need to, a python can just strike really fast.
They're pretty fast, but it's
Hmm.
not a big range. Even a large snake may only have 5 or 6 foot of striking range. They're not but they're a very powerful animal. Cold-blooded animals don't have the ability to have extended exertion. They have a lot of muscle, but it's only as much oxygen as they can pump in, and they just like a crocodile, they're fast for a second, but once they get out of the water and have to exert force, that you don't hear about crocodiles chasing down people on the water or outside of the water. There's a reason. That's a good thing, by the way.
So
So
they're basically me in bed. Like for a really short amount of time, I can go pretty quick. but
right, and
but
then the
then
process
uh,
of eating is very slow,
I need a
and the
cigarette
process of
break.
digestion is also very slow. But then again, a python it eats a small deer that could be one of only 4 meals a year that it eats. So it doesn't have to eat that often.
Interesting. I would say weird animal fact that I learned or saw recently is roadrunners actually fuck up rattlesnakes.
Oh yeah,
I had no idea.
bobcat bobcats love to eat rattlesnakes. You
Well,
wouldn't
yeah,
think that those.
but have you seen a
Well, but I mean,
roadrunner? Like they're like this kind
oh,
of like
they're a
shitty
snake
little.
eater. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I it's kind of a shitty little bird. I was like, that. Oh no, it's dead. That rattlesnake is gonna kill it. Nope. Like,
Yeah, just watch a mongoose go after a cobra. You'll be like, how does that? Because the venom doesn't do anything to them. Like it doesn't kill them. They have a natural, and they're much faster than the snake. I mean, the snake could still eat it, if it like got a hold of it and got something, but they're not susceptible to those things. And I don't like to play with cobras. Haven't done it for a while, not since my yogi days. And
not since when you're in the church.
and cobras, by the way, are snake eaters. So if you didn't know that, like a king cobra, well, probably just the king cobra, they eat only other snakes.
Oh, that's fucked up. Because here's the
Hey,
thing, I hate king cobras. Like they are, and I'm not even kidding. When you're like, oh, hopefully you have nightmares. No, my worst nightmares are almost always exclusively like a weird situation with like a cobra. Like, I'm like walking to the bathroom and like one will just rise up. Like somehow it'll become, 6 foot
I gotta
tall.
go real bad,
You
but no,
know,
there's a king cobra on my
it's
foot.
just like looking at me like ready to attack. But But the thing I hate the most actually kills things that I hate too. So it's like, does that
Yep.
become a friend of an enemy of an enemy is a friend, Like,
Well, they're still very poisonous. So, and they will strike, in defense for the most part. But a king cobra can also reach 20 feet long. They don't have the girth of a python,
good
but
lord.
they're very intimidating to see a 20-foot king cobra.
Yeah, no, that's one thing I just definitely wouldn't want to see. Among many reasons, that is why I will not go to the Middle East ever in my life. Like, just fuck all that. Like, that's Cobra country.
Yeah, I wouldn't be much of a desert nomad. It just wouldn't happen to me.
Like there's certain areas like see on the opposite, I actually am a big fan of like alligators and crocodiles, but I have respect for them. Live, they can stay. I'm not gonna go hang out there.
You
Like
respectfully stay away. Well,
yes, yeah,
do remember, I had somebody laughing the other day, just because, although you were right, we were talking about what animal's the most dangerous in Africa. And of course, if you didn't know, it's the hippo.
yeah.
But he suggested that it was mosquitoes. And of course, what he meant was malaria. And so, of course, I have to go, well, yeah. But I mean, the ones that eat you or go at least, and then you're dead. Yeah, the hippos got you there.
Right. No, I mean, because yeah, if you look at like mammal, it's humans. Humans kill more humans than any, but like there's those little like yeah, like insects. What like I think because of like where you're like how many humans do you think have like contact with hippos all the time? Like if you
Well,
just take if you take the
if you
entire
live in Mexico
population.
now, you got to remember, I can't remember if Mexico as South America, and Pablo Escobar had he imported a bunch of hippos
He did.
into his local lakes. They have now, it's when they busted him and busted his mansion and all that stuff, they let those hippos escape his compound, and for the last whenever since they busted him, have been breeding like wildfire as much as hippos can breed, and they're basically the hippos are taking over South America, and they're not indigenous stuff because there weren't any before. And so eventually it's going to become even more dangerous to take a trip down the Amazon. And you won't even have to worry about some indigenous species of people or indigenous tribe that hasn't had contact. You could still be killed by a hippo now.
Here's the question though with that. When you think about it, isn't that this might sound really dumb, but isn't that how most animals got to different locations? Like
Well, you got to remember,
post-human.
South America, well, the land bridge. So you had one of the great connections of North America and South America is the land bridge, basically the Panama Canal. So, the Panama Canal wasn't, really a crossable thing, but when enough ice, it happens on the, this has been quite a long time, many tens of millions of years. There were no marsupials like in the same as there were in North America, and there were no which if you don't know what those are like, imagine a 7-foot ostrich, but instead of a goofy little head that just, that has a little beak with no teeth, imagine a 2-foot skull with a razor beak like a hammer or an axe.
Like an osprey or something like that?
Well, yeah, but much bigger than that would be, your standard kind of falcon or your eagle, which are actually considered to be the raptor family. But these things
there's some giant ones right now. Like I forget what it's called, but there is one in
Mexico. There's the golden eagle. Yeah, that's the golden eagles. Those are the biggest birds in North America, and then other than the condors.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
There's the biggest eagle is in Russia or something.
Their talons are like 5 to 6 inches long. Just think about that.
But these aren't flying birds. These are flightless birds. So they have little tiny useless wings, but they have giant legs and stand much taller. Like, of course, there are some big birds that are extinct within the realm of human, like the moa on the islands that were like 9-10 foot tall ostrich-like birds that when we got there, the indigenous people and the new people during, like the 13th or 14th to the 16th century ate them all up because they probably tasted like chicken.
Probably delicious.
And, but these are deadly things. This is something you would just not want to run into as a jaguar. But unfortunately for the giant flightless birds, cats were the mammals were a little bit more efficient in the battle.
Yeah,
And,
I could see that.
you know,
By the way, speaking of
but,
eagles, do you know how like the American eagle, they are the perfect symbol for America. Do you know how most of them die?
uh, I'll just listen to your,
The common way that they die is they drop on like train tracks to eat like dead food. They get too fat and they can't fly away, and they get hit by either a car while on like the street or by a train.
well, yeah, but that's how like rednecks and homeless people die too. So what do you
That's
expect?
This is what I'm saying though. It's a perfect representation for America.
Well,
They gorge themselves to death essentially. Like that's,
well,
look,
it's better that
I'm
they die
there.
like that than at the hands of some hunter, just trying to wing a bird somewhere, Yeah.
No,
Choo
look,
choo.
look, man. That's the way. I mean, I'm going out that route. I'm not letting like Al Qaeda get me. I'm letting
Well,
me.
you got to
I'm
travel to
letting
get let Al Qaeda to get you.
I'm letting McDonald's get me, not immigrants.
Yeah, that joke actually came up this weekend. And so there was a book. I went to a garage sale that had a book that was Tammy Faye and Jim Baker. Like it was kind of a history of it, but it was a celebration of them because it even had like the other great preachers, and it had this young picture of
Oh,
Kenneth Copeland, which he looked like a demon back then too, so it wasn't a problem. And we were laughing because all these super preachers turned out to either have a hooker and drug problem and a meth problem, or to have their gay lover and a meth problem, and that's kind of a big thing. Or they just get so crazy with their money, like Kenneth Copeland, who's like, well, Jesus wanted me to buy that third jet. I needed that new jetliner. How else was I going to bring Jesus to the people of Madagascar?
the annoying
It's
thing
just
is if they would sell the religion that way, I would have been down. Like way back, I've been like, look, we're gonna worship God. You're gonna send us money. We're gonna party with like meth and PCP and hookers. I'd be like, yeah, okay. You know what? I'm down for this.
that sounds like a fun cult. And you brought that right out of 1969 for sure.
That's the way.
Yeah, no,
That's how
I think you
cults
had to have
screw
the
up.
prosperity gospel like as a part of your previous plan to actually, the prosperity plus chemical I can't even say it now.
I'm just saying, like
Gospel.
that is how I feel like the cults actually screw up, is because it's all like, they're halfway hippies a lot of times and like off the grid weirdos, and or
Like the Heaven's Gate cult, where they made them
yes,
all. See, that's what one movie that anybody should watch if you want to watch a funny movie about cults. Believe it or not, is Bubble Boy, which is one of Jake Gyllenhaal's earlier movies, where he plays somebody like the boy in the bubble. By the way, if you don't know what that is, that's reference to a kid in the 70s who had an autoimmune disease and anything would kill him, which, by the way, wasn't true, but they didn't know any better. And so that he lived in a literal plastic bubble around his house. And so they made the whole movie is about Jake Gyllenhaal being the bubble boy, and then he escapes to discover his adulthood. And one of the things he encounters is a cult, which Fabio is the leader of the cult. And everybody's either named like John, or no, it's like Todd or Karen or something like that.
I would
Or
join that
Janine or
cult.
something like. They all have the same haircut, wear the same pants and the same shoes, and they give all their worldly possessions to Fabio. He's the leader. Well, that's a representation of what Heaven's Gate did, the UFO cult, which eventually, they all drank the Kool-Aid. In other words,
This is what I'm saying too. Like, why there is no appeal to that at all. Like, why would you join that cult? You're not getting a lot of members if that's how you're selling your cult. You should, sex, drugs, rock and roll. Like, this is my cult.
oh yeah.
People would be like, fuck yeah, I'm down for that cult.
Well, you need desperate, lonely people for that. I mean, really, how are you going to convince somebody who's, let's just say they're enjoying the basics of life, like maybe they're going out, they have the company of the sex that they want, they're able to enjoy themselves, maybe a little of this and that here, they have a little bit of responsibility, they're not total screw ups, and then you've got the opposite of people who have absolutely no self-control or don't expose themselves to anything in order to, Yeah, that's why Jimi Hendrix asks, "Are you experienced?" Because if you don't have any experience saying no to something, then you'll always say yes to somebody who'll make that decision for you. And that's what they want.
And that's how we got the incel community.
Yeah, exactly.
Are they red pillars or blue pill? I forget what pills they take, but yeah.
They're no pill whatsoever. They're their own pill.
No,
Like, if you're going to talk about red pillars, those guys, if you're going to be Mr. Alpha male, you're not going to exclude, women from your life because they don't. You're going to go for that head over heels, and they're not. You know what I mean? It's like those people are psychologically damaged.
Oh,
like
they really
big time.
are. Yeah.
Because a couple of the people that were famous, even that were the incels, were very good-looking men. I mean, they were, but they were insane. I mean, it doesn't matter. Those women knew they were crazy.
It's not just that, though. I mean, like, okay, you can apply it to men, or men can apply this to their life, too. Because it's like I tell my wife, I was at a party, not a party, a get-together, with some scientists, a cop, a social worker.
This was a joke. I know it is. I was at a bar with
No, these are actually unfortunate. Yeah, like I say, sounds like a real good time, I know. And I was sober, by the way. I had to be the sober guy. But I'm having a conversation with my wife and her coworker, who is a scientist, and they were talking. She was talking about sex, and she's like, her husband, who's a cop, was like, oh, he just loves sex all the time. Like, how come you're not more aggressive? And I said, and I think this is what men can take.
They're talking to you, a guy with 2 kids.
I know, but yeah. Anyway, I think this is a lesson guys can take. And by the way, it totally offended all the women here, but then it shouldn't have. But here's what I said. I said, if all you have is pussy, if that's all you have to offer, then that's what I'll take. But you gotta be more than that. Like, meaning, I'm 38 years old. I'm done with just fucking with pussy. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's all some woman is gonna offer, I don't want it.
So you're saying they didn't understand that you said you wanted a woman with more substance other than
right.
And I know people love this word, than a gash.
And my whole point was my wife is more than that, and that's why I'm
right.
not
I understood that.
Right. But I think that's the same thing with dudes as well. Like, if that's all you're gonna be, you're gonna fail. Like, if you're just dick and abs, sorry, you're not entertained. Women want you to bring the personality, be funny, be interesting. Like,
be a certain time in their life where that's what they think that's all they want, but shortly that will fall apart.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same with, it being a guy. You know how it is. Like, in your early 20s, like, you will fuck a ton of dumb, hot chicks. But then you don't care about them. You don't want to marry them. You don't want to.
Because, you don't want to marry. You don't want to babysit them. You don't want to, once every whim is taken, you don't want to, you need them to be socially and mentally strong, not fragile and, I can't do this anymore.
Well, and all they are is pussy. So what else do you want from them? That's it. That's all you got. That's all I'm gonna take, and then that's it. Like, that relationship is done. And then like, well, how come? Well, yeah, you're so cold. No, I'm not. Like, because
I can't believe they got offended for that. That doesn't make any. It's almost like they weren't listening.
I'm taking what you're offering, and I'm throwing the rest away. There's nothing wrong with that, I don't think. And by the way, before people jump on that, bandwagon of, well, it's because you hang out with a bunch of lefties, and cop and his wife, okay? These are not left people. They're hardcore MAGA people. Love the Trump. So yeah, like, this was just, I don't know. I think it was because and mind you, I think a key part of this too was the fact that I said I was the only sober one. I think what they heard me say was women are only pussy and I don't want anything else.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They weren't listening.
And it's no surprise because, they're getting wasted, like, you don't often listen to.
And in reality, that's exactly how those two probably got together.
Oh, I mean, I don't know that much about them. Like, I will say this, like the cop himself, he actually seems like a pretty nice guy. She is flighty as all get. Like she's got like like you have ADD, right? She had
Many forms of it, probably.
she she like stomps your ADD to death. She
Now, are you
crushes.
sure it's ADD or some other kind of dysfunction? Because
I mean, she will jump on to like if you're having a conversation with her, it's you're having 15 conversations with her. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, we're gonna start at point A and we're gonna end up at point Z at some point. Like,
well, as long as she could come back to any one of those points, I'd be impressed. But if she's just so, her amount of listening capability is so low that she has to go somewhere else just to keep the conversation going.
If you have the time, she probably would get back to it, but it's gonna be 2 or 3 hours later.
I usually give people drinking that girth of stupidity just to keep the party happy. I'll entertain them for upon them to retort something good enough to keep everybody else entertained.
No, and to be honest, like my goal was to be a shit stirrer. Like, I mean, I kept talking about like there was one single dude, and I kept telling him like he needs to stop trying to get a date. I'm like, don't fuck with women like that, man. Like, be yourself and be by yourself. When you want female companionship, just get a hooker. It's easier, it's cheaper. You have to only do like once a month. You can spend the rest of your money on you. Just get a prostitute. You don't want it.
Yeah, well, and if you're patient and content, no matter what you do, that also is an attractive thing. Not looking like you need somebody else all the time.
But mind you, again, I'm saying this amongst 3 married couples and a cop. So advocating, streetwalkers, not exactly a popular take.
I would have thought that was pretty funny.
It was just my whole goal, being the sober dude, not wanting to be there. I'm like, I want to start arguments. Like, I would put in random
and they
things.
acted all pure and morals. They want to stand on the high ground. But if you just let that conversation go, not your subject matter, they would just end up in some kind of dirty talk anyway with everyone else. That's always how it ends.
Oh, and to be fair to them too, by the way, like a majority of the conversation was sex. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like a clutching their pearls kind of situation. It was just I have a fucked up view. And, I sort
what's funny is as you get older too, those conversations with party people will start to stray less away from their sexual prowess. Like, okay, sure, 20 years ago, we all knew we were pimps, but come on, don't give me that crap that every day in the gym is, no.
Oh, I know,
I'm not buying it.
Yeah, no, and I mean, like, and that was what the whole conversation, and where I was at was I was kind of defending the fact that like I don't want to bone all the time, and like, but I was coming from it from perspective too of the fact that I just said we don't do this podcast, which is once a week. I want to do it 2 or 3 times a week. I don't even have once a week because of the kids. What makes you think I have time for sex? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I guess the thing too is like they were running what they hear from my wife, which is he plays guitar 2 hours a day. He plays video games a lot, and all that is true. But I'm like, but I don't drink anymore. I need something. I gotta.
Yeah.
And my thing can.
But the thing is, we don't involve ourselves in. Not to say if somebody just gave me a giant bag of ecstasy, I wouldn't say thank you. But we don't do drugs and drink, not for the reason that they wouldn't do them. They would turn them down because they thought they had a problem or was immoral. We don't do it because we've been there and done that, and it's like, okay, I'm not interested in.
It's just not
spending
fun.
my time.
It's not fun anymore. It's just not fun anymore.
Yeah,
like, I tried.
It could be fun, but there are physical ramifications to these things. As you get older, you can't manage those physical ramifications as you could as you were younger. In other words, you could wake up without a horrible hangover when you were 21. But when you're 40, it doesn't really work.
There's definitely that. There's also just like, um, like I tried to drink St. Patrick's Day, right? And I gave up. Like I had half a glass of Jameson, and just as what you pour maybe two shots into a glass, a short glass, and you sip on it. I was sitting there watching the Dropkick Murphys do their live stream, and it was great, by the way. And I was just like, this isn't. It's just not fun. Like it's
It's not increasing the enjoyment.
it's not. No. Sadly, I grabbed some hummus and some flatbread, and I had more fun eating some hummus and flatbread than I did drinking whiskey.
Ugh.
I don't know. I really don't. I don't know my situation. But like one of the funniest fun moments of hanging out that I've had with other people was actually me and my friend Christine playing GTA 5, and it's online. You're just the things that happen in the game, especially if you're trying to work with other people. The controls are a little bit wonky. Specifically, there was this one mission where we had five groups of two and five cars. So you drive to these locations and you would raid stuff, right? Christine was such a shitty driver that we were always behind everybody else, so they all stopped and they all got out of their cars. Here comes Christine at 100 miles an hour and just plows through everybody. It just kills the entire group because she couldn't fucking drive right.
Same team, same team.
I am sitting there just dying laughing because all these you can hear people, what the fuck, what the shit, oh my, this is fucking bullshit. And she's sitting there almost unpurposely doing donuts on their dead bodies.
You should have told her how to scream Leroy Jenkins as she came in that car.
I would have if it was the fact that she did, and which made it funnier. She didn't do it on purpose.
Oh yeah, so Leroy did do it on purpose. That's true.
Yes. Anyway, let's get to some stuff. First up, I guess I just will go with the most prominent what's going on right now. The stimulus, and this kind of goes into my issue with the Democrats because I think we're looking at a situation with President Biden, the administration itself, where not only is the swamp still incredibly prominent. I don't know if you saw this, but there was an article that the New York Times released that showed how many aides have connections with major CEOs and got paid majorly. Like Ron Klain, who is, one of Biden's, he's like his left-hand man.
Yeah.
He received over 400 million from different, not only foreign companies, but also American companies. Some of them, though, one of the most notable is a company who works out of Saudi Arabia, and they are primarily focused on facial recognition. That to me is terrifying. You've got this guy who was given this much money by that company, and he is best buddies with our president. Something you know what I'm saying? And there was a laundry list. Honestly, I have to say this. I haven't said it in a long time, but kudos to New York Times for printing this article because there was just a laundry list. This is the Biden staffers. This is who they worked for. This is who they've gotten money from. This is how much money. It was a really good article, and I'm glad to see, as much crap as a lot of mainstream media gets, and deservedly so, but that they are doing some journalism out there because we wouldn't know. And
well, they also just recently started to go after Cuomo, but it's a little, and it wasn't just about the nursing home death. It was about the recent, very probable and true accusations of him being a misogynistic, sexual assaulter, whatever.
Yeah.
We all know Cuomo's like that, but they waited till now to do that when we all knew, they were going to go after him for the nursing home deaths and everything like that. It took till after Trump walked out for them to get back to it.
It makes no sense to me either, because like, why would they hinge that upon the Trump administration? Like, why? Meaning, if they would have come out attacking Cuomo, that would have not affected the election at all. You know what I'm
Right. I
saying?
mean, but
Like,
that's how they think, though. If you attack any Democrat,
right,
it would
right.
have been, a negative, even when it was very obvious that and the thing is, I do consider the nursing home deaths quite a bit more, 40,000 deaths of elderly people. And then he continued to do it. He continued to do it. And I just don't understand even his own rationale for doing that. I mean, how was that ever going to benefit him in any way, shape, or form? I just don't get it.
I mean, well, obviously, because the
Money.
nursing home, those nursing homes and the companies that ultimately own them gave him a lot of money. And
Political sacrifice for money.
yeah, and
but it's so blatant. It just shows you how much he doesn't care. That's what it shows you.
this is just, it's more of that, and I think that's what the problem is. It's always going to be the problem, and you know, um, just for anyone who's like, well, yeah, that's why I voted for Trump. Trump had it just as bad, if not worse. And it was almost more blatant at times. Um, like,
Yeah, these aides and these swampers were left over from the Obama administration and Hillary's people too. It didn't matter if Trump pulled in new ones; they're probably just going to be some of the same people because they're all from the same swamp.
well,
It's almost like they can't find any new pools to pull from.
even like, okay, here, there again, another article that popped out, and this is just, again, gives you an idea how swampy. I wonder if you were to become a politician, you would be able to run for presidency, win presidency, if you would still end up falling into the swamp. Again, him, I knew he was a swamp monster from the get. I mean, come on, he was good friends with the Clintons. Everyone acts like that didn't exist. That totally existed. They were really good friends.
Well, he was a Democrat for a long time.
Yeah, yeah. But okay, so Bill Barr actually worked at the Treasury. She received a $500,000 salary. The average worker, or the average agent that works at the Treasury, $70,000. Her whole, here's what she was dedicated to, by the way: Deutsche Bank and taxes. Who would that affect? Donald Trump. Rudy Giuliani's son, he got $363,000 annually to be the White House sports liaison. Ask yourself this, and by the way, he had no experience. The first thing that I'd like to know: why the fuck does the White House have a sports liaison? Like, especially for that administration, there was no sports. They didn't care. Trump wasn't doing brackets. Like, Trump is the least sports dude there is. Not to mention the fact that they just, why? And why?
But you don't understand how much the PGA is very important to him. Shut up.
I mean, it makes no sense, because the White House is never reporting. I don't care who it is. They're never reporting on sports. Like, that's not what they do. Why are we paying some guy $363,000 a year to report on sports to the White House? Can't they get like ESPN up there? Like,
oh well, and since then though, there's a ton of new Biden liaisons that are of groups of it. I don't even want to mention them because they're so touchy. It's kind of like, I think there's a new like trans community, liaison group. He's got that. So there's all kinds of stuff that it's just like, and I'm sure those people are the same kind of money. They've got lots of interest groups behind them.
The other thing, too, that came out is that in the 4 years that Trump was president, Ivanka and Jared Kushner made over $640 million primarily through Saudi Arabia, through Qatar, and through China. Like, my point, by the way, is to say this.
They didn't give me any.
they this has never stopped and it won't stop. And as much as I can pat New York Times on the back for exposing some of this, they're not focusing on Joe Biden's brother, his son.
Yeah.
I mean, this nepotism thing, it's a huge problem. And the thing that I want, like, really the most about the Joe Biden administration is the fact that they're going to be successful. They're going to do well. People are going to love Biden. Even if they don't like Biden, they're going to like the Biden times. Um, our GDP is set to grow bigger than we've seen in, I mean, probably a decade. Or, I mean, honestly, a century. Going back to like the roaring 20s. It's probably where it's going to be. Um,
Yeah, you know what happened at the end of the 20s, though, right?
that's key, by the way. That's very important. And but that's where I'm getting to. I'm actually making that point because so many people now to stop engaging in politics, which some of that is good. Honestly, the fact that CNN is down 47%, that's a good thing. Fox News is down 52% since uh, what's it? Since September. That's a good
Yeah, but
thing. Like,
let me let you know something on CNN. CNN's 42% is a compounded issue about they're the only ones that they had a previous drop of like 42% or 50%. So that's a 42% of the previous 50% drop. CNN is at the bottom of the viewership by folds.
well,
They have lost so much
CNN,
at sick.
CNN and MSNBC were riding this small January 6th wave. Fox News had already started walking out when they had kind of stopped backing Trump. So it's been they've all three been falling off a cliff. Don't get me wrong. The MSNBC, CNN, they've taken a sharper nosedive, as where Fox's has been more continual since,
Well,
like I
look
said,
what Fox had to deal with, though. They had to deal with either supporting the gamut of people who would, continually call the election false and everything else, and that wasn't going to work in their favor. So
yeah, yeah.
if they're not doing that, they're not going to keep those people that are there, and then whatever the rest that they have would just seem banal.
Well,
So
and
I can completely.
they started losing support before the election because if I remember right, there was certain people who Trump was mad at because they kind of stopped backing some of the stuff he was doing and saying. And I
Yeah.
remember him, tweeting out, like Newsmax and OAN, done with stupid Fox and stuff like that. So yeah, but they're all bleeding people. And that's a good thing. I really do think so. And part of it is because all of those mainstream media channels and honestly a ton of other quote unquote political channels, they only focus on culture war crap. They don't focus on policy. They don't focus on money and politics. They're not focusing in on the fact that the swamp. In fact, the interesting thing, just quickly, side note, I was talking to that cop who is a big Trumper, and he told me, like, oh, the swamp is the biggest problem. And I asked him, I said, what do you think the swamp is? He couldn't give me an answer. And that's what I'm talking about. They we need to learn what these terms mean, how bad money
Right.
and
He
politics
didn't
really is.
understand exactly what the swamp was, and
Exactly.
in the nepotism and the basically our version of these royal families that just keep
Yes.
reciprocating within the swamp itself, and we can't apparently seem to get rid of it.
And and this is why I say the Biden administration for me is potentially the most dangerous administration we've had in our lifetime as well because the fact that our GDP is going to be high. People are going to be happy. People are going to experience about a 3% raise. And that's insane for a lot of people. It's not enough, by the way, but it's enough to pacify them. It's enough for them to go back to brunch, to go back to shopping, and to stop trying to fight the resistance that they never ultimately learned about. But God damn it, if we took another few years, maybe they would start learning. And they're
Sold during that process.
and I think a lot of them are just, and when I say weak, I mean they've been beat down to just say, the May I have another, sir? And if you get just a little bit, you get just a tiny morsel, you're like, well, good. This is better than nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like they're not fighting for the whole damn pie, and they're giving up, and they're going to think they won the country in itself, which I think is going to be more divided than ever, but is also going to be more content. You know, that there's just going to
Well,
be so much
he
more
he does have
people.
22 million jobless people, newly jobless people, to put back to work before I see much contentment.
Oh, he will. No, he will. I mean, I guarantee you, I actually waged this bet this week that come summertime, um, we're going to be doing so much more. I threw down $500 on the fact that our economy is going to either be booming or it's going to start the boom. And again, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I actually think that it's great for people to get back to work. It's great for that stuff to start happening. But when you actually look at how it's going to happen, the fact that, again, you have upper middle class people who have been fine throughout all of this, and they're not paying back debt. They're not, you know, they're not clawing out of a hole, but they've been able to save money. They're actually getting more money. They're going to start buying property, and that separation between the rich and the poor is going to grow even more, but the poor won't realize it right now because it looks okay. You can actually maybe get out a little bit. People are going to be so excited they can go on vacations again. You know, and again, Biden is going to get a ton of credit, and people are going to talk about it. I bet you he's going to be incredibly popular. In fact, he's already, I think, polling at what,
As
68?
long as they don't expose him to too much public camera time, they can
Right.
make him seem
Yeah,
just
yeah.
as energetic in getting things done from wherever they're hiding him most of the time in the first place.
The only
But
thing that
inflation is already happening. I don't know if most people have noticed. There's a lot of inflation going on, not just at your gas pumps. By the way, if you didn't notice,
which is
but
by the way, which is such a myopic like statement because, well, for one, no shit. Like people are moving around more. Like gas is gonna go up. Like it was down because no one was.
it stayed. It was much lower for a few times. We had gas at way below, and of course, it's different where you live. Your Californian gas is going to be ridiculously high, and here in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, it's going to be really low. We even had like $1.50 gas for like a long time in 2017 and 18, and now it's 2.75 or whatever. But I mean, that's the smallest spike has been in relation to the some of the pipelines, first of all, that have shut down, which are absolutely stupid, because the other option to transport oil is with tankers. There's 10,000 times the more ecological damage with tankers on the road and rail cars for accidents than there ever are with the pipeline. So those people fighting for ecological safety saying that the pipelines are dangerous. Nope, it's not. It's when you transport it with other vehicles when it becomes dangerous. Just ask the Exxon Valdez or any of the other things. You have spills and you have breaks and you have train wrecks. That's when you get a lot of problems.
Well, you don't have a lot of train wrecks, but I mean, I don't know. Like, there's definitely different ways to think. One of it, though, is the fact that there wasn't that many jobs actually lost. Like, that was way overreported. In fact, that's
Well,
why
not by comparison to the big picture, for
that's
sure.
why a lot of people stopped talking about it once they saw that, like, how many jobs actually got lost. But no, the inflation in general, like, for one, and I've seen, I don't know, it may have been Tucker or one of those people talk about inflation. Well, that doesn't make economic sense that we're already experiencing inflation based upon the stimulus because the stimulus hasn't even rolled out yet.
Oh no,
You
it's
know what
not.
I'm
It's not
saying?
very based on the stimulus. No, it's not. I mean, that's where I see when you're saying like poor people are floating right now, and they don't realize that once they kind of get off the inflation, if they don't really become employed pretty quickly, then it's going to really catch up to them. And it's not that. It's also because of supply and demand. I mean, it's just, people don't realize how many things around us use chips and hardware and computer
Right.
stuff
That's a
in
huge
China.
one. Yeah. And we talked about that last week. And not even China. I mean, we
Yeah.
we had them here. I mean, We made 40% of them as of 2013. And then, well,
40% of what?
the semiconductors.
Well, it depends on what market. As far as computer, like CPUs, no, not at all. And GPUs, no. So, I mean, which go into everything from video game systems to, your home built computers to even cars now and to a lot of other things. Scientific research even uses GPUs. The average price for the same video card, like I have a
No, I'm not.
5700
Yeah,
XT.
I'm not talking about the entire card. I'm talking about the actual semiconductor. Just as that element. It wasn't that long ago that we made 40% of the world's. We're dropped down to 12% now.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Um,
Well, and those things are going to continually, but that's a supply and demand issue. It's not necessarily an increase in even production costs. It's a supply and demand.
well,
They're
and the
double.
reason why we shipped the jobs away too was a tax cut for the rich thing as well. Because in the one of the last I can't remember if it was under Obama or if it was under Trump. Well, there was a tax cut, and actually incentivized um, having workers in multiple countries, which is just dumb. Like, why are we incentivizing sending jobs to other countries? I don't get I will never understand that. But my point is bigger than that though, as far as this final downplay. And like you were talking about, yeah, we're going to hit like the roaring 20s. We're gonna hit the, Black Friday because we didn't do anything. This stimulus isn't. I mean, is it? Is it a little hand? Is it not even? Like it's maybe a little a little bit of stability, a tiny bit. But they didn't do anything that needed to get done. When was the last time that our economy and our country has been so separated? 19 what 30 1930s, early 1930s. What did it take to get it back on track? It took FDR.
War.
It took FDR and the New Deal.
And the war.
I mean, yeah, that doesn't
What
really
FDR
work
did
anymore.
was great, but the war effort put so many people to work. Oh my God, dude! I mean,
Yeah, it doesn't.
why?
It doesn't
Yeah,
really work anymore though, because
no, because we don't not going to use people like that.
Yeah, we don't do that. But because prior to FDR, there was no minimum wage, there was no Social Security, there was. I mean, you think about all of those things. Child labor, for instance, was avidly used. Um,
I'm down.
all of those things really make a difference. Like, and I think again, I think we're going to experience that because we didn't solve any of those problems. We didn't do anything. Biden pretty much just passed the buck, and he's gonna look great for it. He really is. I think, if it's not the border, because that's the only place I think that he could end up with some issues. But if they don't vaccinated, we got checks. I mean, that whole 100 million vaccines, 100 million checks. That's fantastic marketing. Like, because that's what I mean. That's what people want. People want to go back to sleep, and I think that in itself, though, that aspect terrifies me because not only are we going to have all that, we're going to be content. We're not going to be worried about bettering ourselves. We're going to forgive, a lot of the corporatists. We're going to forgive what the dirty things Wall Street does. We're going to stop fighting for, getting money out of politics. We're going to stop fighting for the populace, and we're going to be subjected to potentially some of the worst policies that we will ever see to those same, enterprises that caused the problem to begin with and will end up driving us right off of a steep cliff. And we're going to actively do it because we're going to say, well,
It terrifies me too about the very first opportunity Biden had to not get into war. he shoots some missiles in Syria. It's like, oh, it's great.
Yeah,
That's what we
no,
need to be.
I agree. I agree. It's, I mean, and there again, I can't, you can't say, yeah, we did better on that under the last guy either. Because if I remember right, one of Trump's first actions was actually shooting off the Moab.
Yeah,
Uh,
it was in retaliation for
uh,
the airport attack.
yeah, and Biden claims retaliation for this, and we all know none of it really is. Number one, we don't need to. Uh, it's them showing, you know, they're still in, for military. The deep
Man,
state
I'm all
is
about having a
still.
powerful military.
All about like a powerful military. I don't know how much we actually needed. Meaning this, like, I don't know. Did you see that whole thing? Trump said um, he was going to reduce the number of troops in Afghanistan to, what was it, 1,000?
The troops to be reduced to like 3,000 in Europe, but Biden canceled all those withdrawals.
Well, it didn't. It didn't even ever happen. Is what
No,
I'm
some of it
saying.
did. They
No,
were starting to reduce staffers.
it didn't. And this is what I'm talking about, where I'm saying this is where I fear, like, the military in general. So what happened was Trump called this order, and what the top brass did, and apparently they did this under Obama as well, but no one really paid attention to it because apparently Obama did kind of the same thing Trump did, but with the military, some of the top brass in there said, we don't actually have that many troops over here. We have classified agents, we have classified soldiers. You see what I'm saying? They hid
Like
the soldiers.
we're doing stuff with MI6 over there.
Basically, we're classified to the White House. We're classified to journalists, but we're still just fucking around with our dicks in our hands. Like, at this point, even our president doesn't have control over our military.
No, I don't doubt that.
That's a problem. Like,
they only allow him to be the cheerleader when it really comes down to it.
yeah, they control every other aspect of it, and I don't know. It's a very weird and scary situation. I think there again because right now things look so sunny, so prominent for America to come back, but at the end of the day, we didn't do anything. We are going back to, at at best, we are going back to people who the average family is $500 away from being bankrupt. Like, is that a goal? Is that what we want to be? Like, we're the richest country in the world, and the average American family is $500 away from bankruptcy. If another interesting statistic, if all debtors in America needed their money back right now, all but I think like 2% of the country would be bankrupt. Think about that.
Oh, I can believe it.
I mean, honestly, 98% of this country is in debt. That's horrible. That's terrifying. And I know there's some people who are like, well, but I own a house. It doesn't matter. It's still a debt. Like, your car is a debt. Your cell phone company, that whole plan, that's a debt, dude. Like, they got us by the balls and we didn't change it. We had an opportunity. I think if we would have had, um, as much as I'm torn on the guy, but I think if we would have had a Josh Hawley, a Bernie Sanders, we would have gotten to a point, hell, even an Andrew Yang, I think we could have done some transformative things in this country to where we wouldn't be going back to these same problems. And we're going to have to. We're going to have to find, at some point, we're going to have to find another dude who is a populist, like what FDR was, a little bit like, LBJ back in the day. We're going to have to find someone like that because this, like, run of the mill, like, I'm just gonna go ahead and say elitist Democrats from New York who seem to be our presidents for the last, and yes, I'm including Bush in that group because he hung out with them too. Like that whole group is just not working, and it's going to fuck us over bad.
This is where I do my Bush laugh.
I'm gonna go paint. I can't do a Bush. I really can't. Anyway, though, the other thing I want to talk about too is I don't know. I wanted your input. First, let me just say this: like, have you seen these YouTubers? There's a guy called Tech Review USA, and
Oh my God!
there's another one
Yes, I know who that is.
called The Quarterling.
Quartering.
Quartering, sorry. What the? Okay,
I like the quarterling. That sounds.
I'd rather have that guy. These dudes irritate me. Here's why they irritate me. Because, for one, they come off as like they're going to talk about video games or like something cool, like technology wise, you know?
They used to. They
And
used to.
all they do is whine and cry about cancel culture. Like, what the hell? I don't
Well,
need that.
Tech Review. I'm very familiar with both of them. He's a hypocrite. I'll give at least the other guy. I don't remember what his name is. Like
Jeff or something, or I don't. Yeah.
Well, the quartering guy. He's actually been a run off YouTube before, kind of for that reason. And I think just because when YouTube was kind of being really, they still are, just whatever algorithm they were running that time. He's been kind of doing that for a while. He's not as wishy-washy, at least on his opinions, as Tech Review USA is.
Okay, I get you. Here's my thing, though. They are not political. Like, they act like they are, but they're not.
Hey, if it's Star Wars, it's political, buddy.
Hey, and you want to talk Star Wars politics? I'm here for it. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not for dressing up your show like I'm political and I'm in on the news when all you do is talk about cancel culture shit. That's not news. That's not politics. For me, that's the cancer of this country, is talking about that shit. Because like that's the thing that I feel is the banana in the tailpipe. Hey, look at this. Look at the racist guy down here. Look at the mean tweets that blah blah blah. Oh, Bill Burr said this. Everyone focus on that. While they're doing real destructive shit behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? Like, and not to mention, if you're not on Twitter, you don't even hear about half of this shit. Like, a lot of it is not news. I'm sorry. Like, did you see the whole thing with Bill Burr? That he quote unquote offended people. I don't know.
Was he talking about Meghan Markle?
No, at the Grammys. See, you don't even know the instance, and good for you, by the way.
Oh, okay.
He was he said some jokes that offended people at the Grammys or the Oscars or one of the two. I don't know. And the narrative on the quarterling, as I'm gonna call him, and a lot of those places it's not just him, not just attacking that dude, but was the left outraged by Bill Burr, and spend 20 minutes talking about this issue. That whole freaking situation, by the way, lasted for about 2 hours on Twitter, and then it was over, and no one cared. And the interesting thing is, like, I'm a leftist. Like, a lot of my followers are on the left. I tweeted out, I wish people would stop worrying about canceling Bill Burr and worrying about canceling Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin. I got so many.
Kristen Sinema doesn't need any help. It's about cancel itself. So bad.
That bitch is still there.
Oh, I thought you. Never mind. I thought you said Christian Cinema, like the religious movie.
Kristen Sinema, from Arizona.
No, I don't know who that is.
I got a ton of people on the left liking my comment. Like, so it has nothing to do with Bill Burr. It has nothing to do with the left or the. It's just fucking 10 people freaked out about it, and they blow up this crap. And if you're not on Twitter, you're not on Facebook, you don't really give a shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, but these people, and it's not just the YouTube guys. I mean, it's mainstream. Mainstream media is stuck with this now too because they don't have much to go with Biden. I mean, Well, Sleepy Joe's doing his job of just being fucking sleepy. And the real dirt he's doing, people don't want to read into it. It's too boring, you know. So they spend hours, days talking about this crap. They're like, dude, Fox News ran at least 2 weeks of Dr. Seuss crap. And the thing, you know what bothered me? You know what really bothers me about the situation? Number one, do you know what books what books were canceled?
Yes.
Which ones?
Well, I do know I probably can't remember the titles, but
Here's
I
the
do
thing.
know.
No, I'm gonna stop you there because I'm
I
gonna
know.
say
I know the
good,
subject matter of what
good.
was. It was
I'm
the
just,
Asian man who was like, and the boy from China, he eats with sticks.
I'm
And
I'm gonna go ahead though, and on the record and say good for fucking you, because if you had told me, oh yeah, it was this book, that book, and it was these phrases, I would have said, what are you, a fucking weirdo? Who knows that much about Dr. Seuss? Like you're a grown man. Like no, number one, Dr. Seuss is a hack, but two, can you name the activist group that canceled Dr. Seuss?
no, I can't. But I can tell you where he was canceled and where the publishers and the printers that all, stopped. But who was the activist?
None. That's the whole thing. They canceled
I
them.
didn't think there was.
They canceled themselves. This wasn't outrage on the left that got them canceled. They were going through their own books, and I bet you that they were looking at it and they were like, hey, Nike did really, really well after they did the whole Colin Kaepernick thing. Goya
Oh, like
did,
you're saying they did it as they announced themselves as being more progressive by doing this?
yes, or better yet, what they had thought, and they were right, because you can look at Amazon's best-selling books. 27 of the top 30 for the last 2 weeks have been Dr. Seuss books, because the right is just buying the shit out of Dr. Seuss. They're like, this is a good media tactic. This is a good sales tactic.
Well, and by the way, you know what other big company did that exact same thing, right? But benefited.
Um, well, the Mr. Potato Head people.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, and they, by the way, they did it themselves too. Nobody was outraged about Mr. Potato Head.
No,
But then,
that was totally an inside job
yes,
because Mr. Potato Head has always been neutral because you can put Girl with Wood Whites on him the whole time.
I'm glad you fucking get it. This is why we do a show together. This is why we're good together. Because this entire time I'm watching all this crap, and I'm like, you morons, you fucking sheep. This is
Yeah,
nothing.
that one was totally obvious.
I mean, this is, you know, here's a good one on the Dr. Seuss level, which, by the way, not a fan of Dr. Seuss. I actually do think he's a hack, and has nothing to do with anything else, but besides the fact that 10 years ago I'd have been like, yeah, Dr. Seuss stinks. But for any of those who are curious, and you have some Dr. Seuss books, I do because I have kids, look into who the Horton Hears a Who, look to who he dedicated that book to. And you'll actually see it was to one of my, it says like to one of my best friends, and he has a Japanese name because he lives in Japan. You see what I'm saying? Like Dr. Seuss, probably hard to be a racist when one of his best friends was Japanese. Isn't, you know what I mean? Like,
Well, Bill Burr's a racist because his wife is black.
well, Bill Burr's Bill Burr's all of those things they say he is because he's a fucking hilarious comic.
Yeah, because he's an asshole and everybody loves him because he's an asshole.
Yes, because he's good at his job. I mean, but there again, you know, I don't, we gotta stop falling for this. The right is outraged about this. The left is outraged about it. No one's outraged about most of the crap. They get outraged because, like, Rachel Maddow or Tucker Carlson or somebody will pick something up, and then they eat it up like that shit's cocaine, and then they get outraged by it. But they weren't outraged by it before. Like,
Well, I'll give you a quick outrage that I thought, and if anybody listens to this show regularly, they'll know that I am a negative fan of police officers and police unions and police in general in the United States. Not a fan. And but there was one of the recent shootings of that really creepy kid that went in and shot up the massage parlors. You know, they tried to make it a big race issue right off the bat. They were fishing for it. I watched all of the press conferences, and you know, it was apparent the guy he was a regular visitor to these places, and he also killed a couple white people too in the process. But he was they let everybody know that it seems like he was having some issues associated with being a sex addict and not being able to say no to going to the massage parlors. So in his convoluted state, he decided to get rid of the temptation, is what they were saying. And one of the police officers, while giving this, you know, explanation to the things, they were saying, well, apparently he had a really bad day. And, you know, and they were like, a bad day? That's what you say he had? You know, how dare you? He was saying that the guy had a breakdown. Like,
yeah. See, the thing is, it was like, I heard that thing too. And I was like, this is the most sympathetic I have heard a cop be to a mass murderer.
Well, you know, and I agree, but it's one of the time it's word salad. I mean, I don't think that cop was sympathetic in any way, shape, or form to this piece of crap. I think he just chose his words. He should have said the guy had a breakdown, you know, instead of a bad day. And while I say that's not the best choice of words, you know, that's not what we need to be concentrating on. Some doofus cop who spent a whole 6 months in cop school, you know, didn't spend that time in vocabulary school.
He was the chief of police, though. He wasn't just some cop.
Oh, that means a lot.
But I mean, he's been in that system for a long time. And I think the issue is like when like my kid runs around with his underwear around his head and is throwing pots and pans around the house. I say, he just had a bad day. I'm not gonna say like, oh man, he's a total fuck. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with that little bastard. Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it was very
expectations
paternal.
Of police officers are too low.
I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if they got up there and went, "This guy was a bad dude. He did go." You know, that's what I expect.
You know, like, look, to buttress your other side of it though, like, why are we tripping about what like? People who are like saying, yeah, but it wasn't a hate crime. Who gives a shit? Like, honestly, like, meaning, just let it be a hate crime. Who cares? Like, if they say it's a hate crime, it's a fucking hate. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like,
because the designation of the term hate crime
doesn't matter. Doesn't matter for this dude.
It shouldn't matter, but it does when you're trying to work. When your whole goal is to demonize one group over another.
I see. Okay, and that's a weird situation too, because like that is probably how certain people perceive it, and it's like largely why I don't talk about race around my white friends. Because on a bunch of child porn, he's a fucking pedophile. And if I said, well, you don't really know his side of it, you would immediately go, are you a pedophile? Are you into child porn? Like, that's why I don't talk about race with my white friends, because a lot of times, instinctively, white people jump to the defense of white people. And it's like, no, dude, like, you're not a racist. So I'm not calling you a racist.
No, I think,
you know what I'm saying? Like, and I think,
I understand why, but if you watch, say, when I was watching that press conference, this is why it's important sometimes. Now when I was watching that, and the police said at this time we don't think it was directed, you know, at them as a race. We think, you know, this and this, because they're being pressured. The reporters are asking repeatedly about it, and they were like, at this time we don't have any indication that this was motivated for anything other than a sex addiction and you know, some, you know,
right.
blah blah blah.
To
But
be
right after the press conference, Biden gave a speech about it and directly referenced white supremacy and hate crimes against Asians by white people. And that very convoluted, and it does feel like a personal attack, especially when all crimes designated hate crimes against Asians have been 85% mostly black against Asian and Arab against Asian. And so it makes you feel, why are they so
well,
using
that's
this
global.
white supremacy narrative?
That's
And
globally, by the way, though. That's not
it is in the
hmm
United States.
no. It's actually not true
Yeah,
because I've heard that same statistic, and it was like, globally it's the way. But that's not because for one, say those numbers again.
it was 85%. Were 85% of all hate crimes against Asians were primarily black against Asian, and a smaller amount of that being Arab against Asian, Middle Eastern against Asian people. There's quite a few documented attacks in New York that were they were public attacks, but the point of it is, why
What
just
I'm
say
saying,
that
what I'm
say
saying,
it's a hate crime and
no,
then it's not designated, and then bring up this false white supremacy narrative that we see all the time? It's hard not to feel attacked when that's the only narrative that goes through. And there was another attack this weekend.
take a step back though. Are you a white supremacist?
Am I a white supremacist?
Yeah.
Yeah, big time. In
No,
Kansas,
no.
running stuff. I run an agency of one person.
No. You hear what I'm saying though. Like, so who cares? Like, if they're attacking white
Well,
supremacists,
no, I
fuck
care
them.
about hate crimes, period. But when they present as the hate crimes as only coming from one side, when it's not true, then
But like, even
you feel attacked.
Even Biden's speech, he didn't say we need to watch out for all these white people doing this. He just said it was a potential hate crime, and that there's been an increase in hate crimes against Asian Americans, which is true. He didn't say
No,
anything
and
like,
I don't.
you understand what I'm saying? Like, that is where it gets dangerous because you're a completely reasonable dude and you're put in this position where you feel attacked. But it's like, this isn't
Well, no,
about
they
you.
did reference directly that, and it could have been. There's a possibility Biden didn't say that. Maybe it was one of his advisors that directly after said that we're looking at the problems of white supremacy and blah blah blah. And you're like,
Yeah.
why was that a reference? And it's like,
Well, probably because the dude was white. Like, you know what I'm
right, but
saying?
when
Like,
we know that the hate crime wasn't the narrative, and yet we still continually repeat that narrative when we should be just be talking about hate crimes in general. If you want to demonize one person or another, well, say who the majority of hate crimes have been created. It's, I don't know. It just feels like that's
let me throw this out. Number one, two, think about this. At the time, we didn't really know it wasn't a hate crime. The cops say that. Like you said, you can't really take a cop at his word. It did seem
if a
weird.
guy goes into a black church and shoots a bunch of black people, really, I mean, it's not really a question.
Right.
But and
And
for the same point,
on that same note, you had a guy travel across state lines to only attack Asian-owned massage parlors. Like, people didn't know, and to be fair, like, this is one of those things that, like, I will give like Trump a pass on, or Biden, or Ted Cruz, or they're not paying attention. They're not glued in on this stuff. It's like their jobs when it comes to that. Like, and this is also why I give like AOC a pass on some of this crap. Their jobs are really hard when it comes to answering questions about stuff they probably aren't even like. They probably barely heard anything about it. Like, I bet you before Biden headed out, people were like, yeah, so this white dude shot up a bunch of Asians. Like, and that's like, okay, go. Meanwhile, he's been working on the stimulus. He's working on this and that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, their job is to know everything, and then people break it down and say, well, didn't know this detail, didn't know this deal. Well, yeah, probably not. Like, I'm not gonna completely bash them for not knowing all the small details on stuff. Namely, because I think the biggest mistake that Biden did was to talk about it. Like, he's been doing good by not giving a shit about any of this other stuff. And I think that's actually the best thing any president can do is to just shut their
Yeah,
mouth.
because but they're
But
going to ask any president to make a comment
of
on
course
it,
they will. Of
and if
course they
he
will.
doesn't, then his advisors that come out
Yes.
later will
Yeah.
discuss the subject. But they still supposedly represent him, and
They have to give this whole thing, but like, and to be fair to the journalists on it as well, like they didn't know this guy from Adam, and you're given a situation where a dude, like I said, drives 3-4 hours across state lines to go only after these Asian places. You have to add,
places that he regularly
yeah,
visited. Though you got to remember
but they
that
didn't know that. They didn't know that.
they did know that. This was way after those press conferences.
That was at the press conference that the journalists were
No,
asking, like, is this motivated by race? Like,
right. I'm saying the police had already given him a response saying we have no indication right now that anything was motivated by race. There were 2 white people that were also killed in this process, wanting to get back at these
again,
people. Blah 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 blah.
and again, not trusting the police is probably a pretty strong motive, especially since that dude, that police of chief or chief of police, he was actually selling shirts on his website this summer that said coronavirus imported from the Chinese.
I
You
want
see
to
what I'm
buy
saying?
one, please.
Do you want to see what I'm saying though? Like, number one, if you are, and this is kind of off topic, but if you're a person who represents a portion of the country, if you're a governor, a mayor, if you're a police officer, if you're a teacher,
Yeah, no, yeah.
shut your fucking mouth. You don't have an opinion, okay? Just keep it to yourself. Like, you don't need to be on Facebook, you don't need to be on Twitter talking about your personal opinions.
You need to be a
Shut
college
up.
professor, and then you can say whatever you want about politics.
No, because, well, here's the thing, they're not getting paid off my taxpayer money.
That's
Like,
right.
you know what I'm saying? Like, that's
Well, actually, the college professors are getting paid off for some of your tax money.
some
So.
of them. I mean, as much as like Big Pharma is receiving my taxpayer money. Like,
Well, they don't have a political opinion. What are you talking about?
by the way, though, they should be like that. Like, you don't, and especially weird shit like that, where like you're.
Well, and the T-shirt should have said imported by the CCP is what it should have said.
Or
Because I
here's an
have
idea.
no problem with the Chinese at all.
Or here's an idea. Just don't try to make money off the coronavirus. Like, you know what? You're a fucking chief of police. You're making enough money.
Well, for the same reasons, I don't want the back of the police car to say, "In God We Trust," or the blue line, or have the. I love the police blue line flag with the Punisher skull. Oh, that's great.
Right.
The only part of Transformers the movie I liked is when one of the Decepticons, who was like the police car, just said the police to punish and enslave. That was the best part of that movie.
That's fucking awesome. I did not know
that. By the way, is on the Decepticon who was the police car in there. I think it's chasing Bumblebee or whatever. By the way, I hate those movies. Michael Bay's an asshole.
Bumblebee
that's
was
what
okay.
The car said.
Bumblebee was okay. Like, it's an okay dumb movie, but like, to circle back though to the whole case, like, this is the more cancel culture stuff that doesn't, like, again, we spent 10-15 minutes talking about it, and at the end of the day, who cares? Like, this guy
I would rather cancel that police officer or call into question his intelligence by having that stuff for sale than I would just about him going, he just had a bad day. Like, oh yeah, well, personally, I think it's funny whenever the police make jackasses of themselves. So don't get me wrong, I don't really care that he did that. But it seems like we should be concentrating on, the fact that. Well, and the other thing was, we all know what massage parlors are for, and
of course,
honestly,
I'm for
goddamn
it.
For them.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You want me to finish you off? Absolutely.
It ticks me off because, and again, we are focusing on the fact, like, you have half of the country, for some odd way, in some weird reason, defending this guy. Like, it just seems weird.
I haven't encountered those people, but I can understand, like, some religious people.
No. I meant like there again, like some of the cancel culture, or sorry, not cancel culture war people, who are like spending their entire time talking about how this isn't a hate crime, And it's like, okay, even if it technically isn't, who cares? Like, this dude, it's not gonna matter what happens to him. You're not that dude. So why are you defending? You know what I'm saying? Like, and then we have the other half of the country saying, "Oh, this guy is the biggest scumbag because it was a hate crime." No, he's the biggest scumbag because he went around killing people. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
I'm
Like,
for prosecuting killers all the same, but
yeah,
it works politically for some people to include what a hate crime and what a hate crime isn't. And if it was, there are some instances, very many instances, where there's been a couple other murders recently. Like there was an elderly white guy that was disabled that was in his home, and they had two. This was in, I think this was in New York. This is this week,
I
and
think I read about
two black
this.
kids broke into the apartment. They covered him in like alcohol and lit him on fire and killed him. And they were, they didn't even make the news. Basically, you almost had to like search for
Oh,
stuff
yeah,
in those countries.
I read about it. I remember seeing that story. And
But I'm like, okay, well, if we're going to call things a hate, because they really didn't even rob him, they just broke in and murdered him. It's like,
that's
well,
see, and that's an interesting discussion too, because it's like, can you really murder somebody if you don't hate them? Like,
right,
you know,
exactly.
and I understand that like that's not what they're talking about. And
Is a mass shooting even a hate crime if you're just killing people indiscriminately?
and maybe that's what. Here's the other thing. Maybe we should change it to racial crime. You see what I'm saying? Like, or like, you can't even do that because some of those like hate crimes are against women too. But like, or okay, here's a better yet. Here's a better
See, I've never
example.
heard that before. I didn't think about that. What if it's just like one man killing a bunch of women? Would it be a hate crime against women?
Yeah,
Is that actually a designation?
that
It's
is
like an incel mass murder.
no, that actually does exist. I looked it up because I was like, well, man, if I kill, it is a, maybe we should change some of that. And I think like I'm all for any sort of like discussion about that. I think that's fair, without a doubt. I just think like it's such a waste of time to say like whether this was what it was or what it isn't, because at the end of the day, and I'm sure you agree with me, it doesn't matter. Like the dude is gonna, like, he's getting the death penalty if it's available where he's at. If not, he's spending the rest of his life in prison, regardless if it's a hate crime or not a hate crime. Like it doesn't affect his sentencing at all. You know,
All you had to do was see a picture of that guy and go, man, something's wrong with that dude.
oh, and I'm sure he is. He's one of those scumbag weirdos who.
His eyes were so, remember, here's one of those things where the eyes are closer together. The more you are likely to
Yes,
be
yes.
a criminal. That dude's eyes were like an inch apart.
That's it. By the way, I just want to say, like, that's the thing that I found very weird is that there was people who were defending him because he was a sex addict, and I was like, I remember a time in my life when they were debating if sex addiction is even a real thing. Like, it wasn't that long ago, and there was people who were like, well, yeah, but he was a sex addict, he had problems. Oh, how come we don't have that when it's a crack addict? Oh, he was addicted to.
Well, I think
You
I
know what
think
I'm
they think
saying?
addiction is more of a disease. I do. I think addiction is kind
There's an additive that's in some of our food that is actually just as addictive as like low levels of not
well, your body
nicotine,
gives the
but it's
you
one of those.
there, but your body gives that response to like it has doesn't have to do with just eating. It has to do with being full. and so there's our tendency
Yes,
to be full, and
yes.
it's but your body produces that chemical. Who knows? Our food may have some more of it in it, but as far as I know, that's, I guess, if you can stimulate that release of whatever endorphin makes you full, and just about anything can be, because there's those people get addicted to eating non-food items.
Yes,
Also, they eat
yes.
like
I've
toilet
seen that.
paper and
A
chalk
mattress?
and other
I've seen
stuff,
someone
and you're
eat a
like,
mattress.
oh,
Yeah.
what?
I'm just focusing on like a few, like a couple outlying instances, and by the way, I just want to say, like, I'm not in the fact that, like, until you brought this story up, I kind of forgot about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how much it's
Well,
been
look at
on
it
my mind.
today. Don't forget today there was a mass shooting in
Yes,
Colorado.
yeah. I mean, by the way, let me just say this: Joe Biden, this is more proof that he is doing his job. The country's opening back up again. I think we had a school shooting, what, about 2 weeks ago? Like,
Well, it's
we're
about
coming
time.
back,
At
baby.
least the kids are back in school.
It was the first day the school was opening and it had a school shooting. Like, it's like, yep, we are fucking back.
I'm down. Klebold
It
going
was
on.
horrible. It was horrible. Like, it makes you wonder though. Like, are we so bad that we hate each other and we just want to kill each other? Like, is that where we're at in this country? Like, I hope not. I
Well,
really hope not. But
I've got my purge mask. I don't know about you, but I've got a terrifying, bear mask, cartoony with teeth.
well, something that's terrifying. They broke down the votes from 2020. And it's interesting because it's something like we're really lucky we don't experience this, but like you can have a Trump voter and a Biden voter who live in the same zip code, right? But they live in different parts of that zip code, and their neighbors are people who support the same people they do. Like, it is broken down so much in this country, and it's not because, like, the thing that was explained, and I thought they did a pretty good job breaking this down. It's not because somebody says, "Well, I vote Biden. I'm moving where I can see Biden signs or whatever," because it's not apparent. But it's more like people tend to congregate. Like, your liberal Democrats prefer like the city, and your conservatives tend to prefer certain things like the
The rural
rural
areas,
areas,
right?
the outdoor. If it's outdoorsy, then you're probably going to have more. So it really breaks down, and then even breaks down like. And this to me, I thought like was really interesting, is it even breaks down in like style of house, like amenities in that manner. It's like, holy crap, are we so politically divided that we're like looking at our house and like,
Well, I
ah,
think it's
this
more
is this
personality
is
type. It's just based on
this is
personality type.
this
I
is a
mean,
goddamn liberal house. I can't own this house. Like, is that where we're at? Like, I don't
well,
know,
I don't know what a liberal house looks
right?
like, but I do know what my drain bunker looks like. So,
But no, I think, and again, it's a problem. Like, we're one of those weird places, um, that somehow this all missed. As much as I've hated this town, I've grown to love it over the last like couple of years because my neighbor across the way, big old Trump sign, blah blah blah. My his neighbor, who's like kind of catty corny for me, they have one of those. We believe in Black Lives Matter. We believe in love. We believe in unity and blah blah blah. Like, we have all of that, and we're a community that really we'll, we'll make it work. Like, we'll put up with each other's bullshit, and we believe in the community. And like, as an interesting side note is, yeah, I talk to the FedEx guy all the time, and he's like, "Oh, dude, my buddy's down in Wichita just getting nailed with Amazon stuff," and he's like, I don't really get that much. And I was like, really? And I said, do you think it's because people don't have money in our area? And he was like, oh, no, no. He's like, every time that I have to talk face to face with somebody as I'm handing them an Amazon box, he's like, almost every time they tell me how much they lament having to buy from Amazon, but they just couldn't find it locally. And he's like, you don't see that, you don't see
Yeah.
that in other places, and he's right. Yeah, I mean, we're lucky where we're at, and it's very interesting.
Yeah, my area over here, and I live close to the police station, and if I could put up a "fuck you cops" sign, I would if I didn't worry about retaliation from the police, not from my
They
neighbors.
find you, boy. They'd find you.
I'm only around the block. Are you kidding me? I'm afraid to put stickers on my car that they fuck the police or whatever. I would totally have those stickers on my car.
Well, if you want, I can hook you up. Which, by the way, like anyone who wants to call me a hypocrite and say I'm a like you can feel free. But I actually did donate to our sheriff's department, so I have some stickers, and I'll give you one if you. So yeah,
I know I've already got some things,
I don't even know why.
but I didn't get them through the police. I bought them at the thrift store.
Well, yeah, but these are dated. You see, so they'll look and oh, well, that's 2021. We're not gonna pull this dude over. It's
Well, I have 2021 stickers, so
it's a
I'm already ahead of the
it's a
time.
shakedown, man. I had I'm not gonna say his name, but our sheriff came to my store, hat in hand, asking for money. Like,
Oh,
oh yeah,
really?
yeah. He gave me this whole pamphlet, and well, we really need some help, So yeah, like, if there's anything, and it's a tax write-off, blah 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 blah. I'm like, all right, what do you need? Like, and he showed me the packages, like, oh, for 250 you get all this, for 50
What's a 700
you
club?
get yes, for $50 you get a couple stickers and a goddamn newsletter. And I told him, by the way, because at this point I had some power, and I said, dude, you understand if you didn't have the new, like, if I wasn't threatened with getting a newsletter, I would probably sign up for this one. I don't want the goddamn newsletter. like,
You don't want
like,
the next 2 years of calling that will people be like, would you like to donate to them? No, no,
yes,
no, no, no.
100%. Yeah, I mean, the better tactic would be to send me the newsletter and then, like, after 6 months, send a little thing that says, donate $50 and we will stop sending you a newsletter.
Yeah.
But, yeah, no, I don't know.
I can't believe they didn't come on. It's like the firemen who stand at the intersections. Man, it doesn't happen here, but it does in like in Wichita. It's the big intersections at Rock and something else with a boot, and they like throw money in the boot. I'm like, damn it, we just throw money in the boot. Let's put the money in the
How
boot.
sad, by the way, is it that they have to do that? Like, shouldn't we be beyond
Well,
that?
I just don't under. Yeah, I almost want to just say, who is asking you to come out and do this? Who are we supporting? It's not a dead fireman. That's not why they're out there. Well, what? Who you need me to sign a petition for to make more money? I'll do that.
Yeah. Like, who's managing your funds? Like, why are we at this place where, like,
I don't see any junky firehouses. I see fancy ones. So I know the facilities aren't hurting.
Yeah, like, we're at a place where they're kicking, like, homeless people off their corners for the firemen and the cops to peddle for money. Like, what the hell? Anyway, that does it for our show. I think we've gone long enough, but it's good to get back and do this. And we will be back.
Watch out for pythons.
More timely, yes. Especially if you're an alligator or crocodile. Watch your back. We need you guys. And yeah, what was it? And racist snakes. Be careful of them too.
Yeah, spend your money slowly. Spend your money unless you need to buy something.
Or
now.
buy stocks. Although, the thing is I feel bad because so many people I know that I didn't confide in me earlier are telling me now, like, oh, dude, this gets me out of debt. Like, I didn't know you were hurting. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people are so.
But everybody's in debt. Doesn't mean they're necessarily hurting. It just that's probably a good thing that
no.
We're taking some financial.
like, oh, Jesus. Yeah, but if you do have stimulus, yeah, you're right. Either buy some stocks, get some of the stuff that like is coming, like airlines and things like that, Vegas resorts, crap like that, because it's gonna blow up this summer. Um, and yeah,
Cruise lines.
yes, yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. I've got a little money spread around, but nothing like that yet. But anyway, thanks a lot for listening, guys.